listen.
Never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah, famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good, host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Get on baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
All right, there's no human being I'd rather be talking to right now than Pete Hoffman, the producer of the Rico Brogna podcast, and also, as I was driving through the streets of New York, host of WFAN. Excellent job, man. It was like I'm not just saying, you did an excellent job. Excellent.
Thank you.
You sound great. So
thanks, Rob. I appreciate that, man. I'm happy to be here talking baseball, talking Mets baseball, because it's very rare we get to talk Mets baseball, relevant Mets baseball at the end of September.
All right, so let's cut right to the chase. Who is going to be doing the remix for OMG? That's what
It's going to be, if it's somebody on the team.
No. Jose Iglesias said that this is going to be, he's having a remix, and all we know is that it's going to be fire, quote unquote. It's going to be fire, okay. And it's a big artist.
Okay.
And Pete, we're going to have a contest. We want people to guess, but I want you to guess. And so who do you think?
I think it's going to be Pitbull.
Okay. Right. Evan,
that's
you got
my
that?
Guess.
You got that? Document that?
Yep. Got that. All right. Yep.
All right. That is the voice of producer Evan, who is, of course, everybody knows by now. He calls the Mets we. So you do that too, Pete? Are you a we guy?
We guy. What do we do? We're a we.
See, when you're old man yelling at clouds like me, you root for time of game. So
hey, well, congratulations on the pitch clock then, because it must make your life a lot better.
It's such a glorious thing, but it's it's the great game of baseball. There's so many things to talk about, and you guys do such a good job, man, and I am so happy. Not only I'm happy because Evan's a happy guy. Every day he wakes up a happy guy. The Mets are in it. But I'm happy. The Mets are a fun team, man. There's no way around it. The Mets are a fun team. If you want to define fun as having purple chairs and grimaces and walk, whatever. But I'm just talking about, they're a fun team to watch. And so the first thing, what the exercise that I want to do, more so than any team, because I have you two guys, you two experts as part of our family. I want you to state the case of say, hey, let's go. Mets are going to win it all. And even if you don't truly believe it, I think that you want to believe. Do you believe it?
Oh, Rob, I believe it? I've said it on air about 2 months ago when everything started to change. Because here's the thing, Rob. We've seen this over the past few years, this trend of a team, especially from the NL East, starting really slow and finding their way into the playoffs and catching fire, and then all of a sudden winding up in the World Series. It happened with the Nationals in 2019. It's happened with the Braves. It's happened with the Phillies. It's the Mets' turn. They started off 0-5. They were 11 games under 500, and now they've turned into this special team where every single day something amazing is going on. And it's not just listen, Francisco Lindor, who's injured at the moment, he's been the catalyst. He's been the guy, the leader of this team. But whether it's Mark Vientos hitting a home run, whether it's Jose Iglesias making a gorgeous play, whether it's this pitching staff that came out of nowhere to be aces the past month or two of the season, every single one of them. I mean, everyone is stepping up, and you can then go to the actual off the field stuff, the OMGs, the Evan Roberts not shaving his beard for 3 months of the season and then randomly doing it, and all of a sudden the team's taking off. I mean, there's so many different symbols. It's everything. Everything is turning up Mets, and it's amazing. So why not us?
Yes. So why not us? That's why. And Evan's just sitting there shaking his head like you're like you basically threw the cougar in the car for Evan. Lower the heart rate, Evan.
There you go.
There you go. I don't. So Evan, you'll get your turn, but I don't think you're going to disagree with absolutely anything that Pete just said. All right. So, but let's play this game anyway. So the Mets are, yes, they are a good team. Yes, they're certainly in the mix. And yes, I do think that I am a huge proponent of let's find out who is going to pitch, who can pitch, and who is going to pitch. And starting, most importantly, starting. And the Mets, Pete, you know this. Evan, you know this. You talk about since the All-Star break, like the numbers. It's not only the starters. Everyone's focusing on the starters. And I know I'm not doing a good job of what I'm supposed to do, which is going against the Mets, but I can't ignore this. This is the starters, but the bullpen, I looked up total runs since the All-Star break. The Mets bullpen has given up the fewest runs, which is, to me, the most important thing. So that said, it is the National League is loaded. And as much as I want you fine folks to feel good about this, there's some hurdles to jump through here. And I don't want you to be you've dipped your toe in the water of the good vibes, but I want you to be able to jump in and swim around and not drown. But I got a feeling that the National League is not the American League, fellas. And so the first question I'll ask of you, Pete, okay, you like the Mets. Tell me the team that scares you the most.
Let me ask you a question now. Out of the 4 that are fighting for wild card, or just any team in the National League?
Like I'm not like talking about like the Pittsburgh Pirates of pace. No. I'm just talking about the teams that you might face in the postseason.
The team that I guess would be the scariest. You know what? It's the Brewers.
Ooh.
I feel like the Brewers, we're going to see them for the last 3 games of the season. We saw them in the beginning of the season. They basically were the reason why we started off 0-3. And, they have a lot of talent, and I feel like there's a lot of revenge there, the built-up animosity towards the Mets, because obviously we took David Stearns. We made a minor trade with them, whatever. But I just feel like they're a very, not underrated team, but they're a team that's kind of in the shadows, waiting around. They've been good for a few years now. David Stearns built them. And they're a team that the Mets didn't handle well in the beginning of the season. But I've seen the Dodgers. I've seen the Padres. I've seen the Diamondbacks. I mean, I've seen the Braves and the Phillies. Like, the Mets are handling these quote-unquote juggernaut good teams. They don't scare me. The Brewers, I haven't seen them since the first 3 games of the season. They scare me because they've been consistently good. They have probably the manager of the year, the NL manager of the year over there, Murphy. That's a team that really does give me. And then not to mention, Rhys Hoskins likes to punch us right in the you-know-what. So that's something that I'm still nervous about.
And anytime Bob Euchre can say I peed my pants in a celebration, it's good karma. All right, Evan, it's your turn. Like you can mention the Brewers. You can mention it, whatever team you want. What team scares you, keeps you up at night?
Yeah, so it's an interesting topic of conversation, just because it was like when the Mets were in that final wild card spot, and they're still, I guess, kind of tied with it now, but they're still technically in the second wild card spot. I don't know why, but I don't know if it's just like being scared of what happened in 2022, but the Padres scare me a little bit more than the Brewers. And I don't know why. It's like they just have like an electric team. The bullpen is nasty. They have Jackson Merrill, who might be the most clutch guy in baseball. I mean, the amount of clutch hits that guy's got is insane. Their starting rotation, I feel like they have a couple good guys, but then after that, it falls off a little bit, as long as we don't have to face Joe Musgrove again at Citi Field if they were to face him again. But I would say the Padres are the main team that comes to mind out of those. And then obviously, I don't think we'd have to face the D-backs because it seems like, we're kind of neck and neck. And if we get in that spot, we're never going to have to face them unless, eventually down the road. But I think out of the Brewers and Padres, which are the 2 teams we might have to face in the wild card round, I would personally, I think the Padres a little bit more. But.
All right, Evan, you're wrong. This is what I do, Pete. Evan has I'm trying to train Evan a little bit better. When I say you're wrong, he's like, I see what you're saying. Maybe I am. Like, no, dig in. I dig in. I actually like that. I like both of those. And if you ask people in baseball right now, I just was with the Dodgers and the Marlins. the Padres are the team. Like, and Pete, you're right about the Brewers. I mean, like I think people sleep on them because they don't have a ton of guys. Like they don't have the Otanis or whatever.
No, they're not flashy.
No, they're exactly perfectly said. So I think that, but they are good. Pat Murphy, he's like, it's funny because I don't know how you feel about this. We've talked a lot about managers' contracts, and obviously Counsell goes for $8 million to the Cubs. And then, okay, that's going to set the bar. Well, will it? Because then the guy replacing him is even better, and the Cubs aren't as good. So does that will owners say it's not worth $8 million? That's another, just a side note. So,
by the way, on the Craig Counsell thing, I heard from somebody, a source, that said that a lot of managers were not thrilled with Counsell going over and taking what's his name's job now. I'm blanking on the name, but taking over
David Ross. David Ross. Yeah.
And I do know some of the guys. I know semi-friendly with one of the players on the team who's very tight with Ross. So I feel like the team itself wasn't too thrilled either. I think a lot of people were soured by that.
Oh yeah, David Ross is a popular guy, and you're right. And it comes back to, for me, Pete and Evan, managers they have to fit. Like you can have a really, really good manager if he doesn't fit. Like I think Counsell's probably a good manager, but is he the best fit? I don't know. Like I've seen managers that aren't great managers, but they just fit, and that's going to lead me toward a sort of the dynamic with the Mets. And you guys have watched the Mets a lot more than I have. We've had a friend of the program, John Gibbons, on multiple times, and he's the best. He's like, he said, I get the best job in the world because no one knows what I do, which is great. And so, but he also sings Mendoza's praises up and down. And Pete, I'll start with you. That's a part of this. You can have a manager go through it, but you don't know what that manager is going to be like when the postseason comes around, when the rubber meets the road, when it's not crunching time. So what is your vibe with Mendoza right now?
He is somebody that's a couple steps ahead of the game, and Gibbons, I think, has said that too. Just the way you're right. I've heard John Gibbons speak so highly about Mendoza. It gets me excited. Like I don't normally all right, like, do I really believe in this manager? When I hear other guys like John Gibbons, who's been around the league forever, sing his praise. I mean, the Yankees sang his praise, which I can't believe they let him go. Aaron Boone's on the hot seat like every day here in New York, and you let Carlos Mendoza go for the Mets? Okay, that's great for us. But I really do think he is ahead of the game with most things. The bullpen usage is still an issue. That's the one scary point. And I feel like that's most managers' like biggest issue, because this day and age, between starters that don't really give you a lot of length, with bullpen arms that are so inconsistent, and you're just trying to figure out and piece together on a daily basis, how do I get to the next game with somebody if I really need to use them? It's tough, but I think he's doing an okay job, but he's not doing a great job. There's a lot of questions at the end of the day. Edwin Diaz, this is something that Evan Roberts says all the time. If he's your best pitcher in the bullpen, it's the eighth inning, and you have the top three hitters in the lineup going 1, 2, 3. Why is Edwin Diaz not in the game, pitching you those most important outs right there for you? Instead, he puts him in the ninth like that's the delay. I say it's lazy. I think it's a lazy thing to do. Bring in a closer. He's my ninth inning guy. But it doesn't have to. You have to adjust with the game itself. And I think that for the most part, Carlos Mendoza has been able to do that. The other issue, too, that I will say, besides the bullpen, I feel like his fault, he has little like inconsistency with the pinch hitting. Like I've seen some coaches, like Alex Cora is like a genius with the pinch hitting. I don't think Mendoza utilizes his bench enough. Now, maybe that's partly because we don't have the best bench, but for the most part, those are the two issues I think I have. But I like how he keeps the lineup fresh. I like how he basically, if somebody is playing well, they're playing themselves into the lineup. If they're not playing well, they're on the bench. It's accountability, and Mendoza keeps his players accountable.
I love that scouting report. It's a good one. And you come back to the bullpen, and I agree with you. The only way you can do that, where you do the traditional, here's closing, and we're not worrying about the meat of the order in the 7th or 8th, is if you have another guy. This is why teams have multiple closers. But you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, Diaz is here. Who's next? Who's the next guy?
There's been a lot of injuries. I mean, Reed Garrett's been stepping up a little bit as of lately. I mean, it's a hodgepodge, man. Like it's
That's my point.
Yeah,
that's my point. Is that you don't have, you have, and this is that's one of the things that would concern me. Like that would because those are the teams that and I guess like maybe this isn't the best example because the Texas Rangers didn't do it. But what the Texas Rangers did last year was. It wasn't like, here's Jose Leclerc. He's going to close out the games. They found the matchups. Here's Leclerc's spot, to your point. And yes, but you've got to have these other guys pitching well as well. So, Evan, you tell me. You tell me about going back to Mendoza. What's your thought?
I think Pete did a really good job at breaking down different areas. I think he's definitely – I really enjoy him with the lineup because I feel like he's given the young guys a chance when needed. He's put in, for example, the outfield as of, a couple weeks ago, we basically have 5 guys for 3 spots, and it's a matter, and they all, at least in the past, Tyrone Taylor, not as much, but the other 4 guys have all been regulars in the past on their past teams and obviously have fallen off a little bit, but he's so focused on playing the hot hand. Like Tyrone Taylor at any other point in the season, and if you were just a manager just basing it on, track record, would not be a guy that's in the lineup every day. But since he's been playing so well lately and he's been coming through in the clutch and been really the only guy that was hitting until a couple of nights ago, he says, okay, we're putting Taylor in there every day. And then he's like, all right, now, Nimmo's not hitting. All right, let's bump him over to here. Let's put Marte in. All right, Marte isn't hitting. Well, let's put him in a clutch spot. Because, despite the fact that he's not hitting, if he hits in that clutch spot and then he gets on a roll, then he becomes back into the rotation. So I feel like he's done a good job of kind of mixing that up. And then also, I feel like he's kind of done a good job with what the hand he's been dealt when it comes to some of the guys too, because with the injuries, it makes it kind of tricky because sometimes with the bullpen too, especially with the Mets this year, they basically had the tale of 2 bullpens because they basically had to completely remake the bullpen halfway through the year. So it's the guys that he was so reliant on in the first half, like the Reed Garretts, he disappears in the middle of the season and now he becomes great again. So it's probably so tricky when you're like, all right, Adam Ottavino was a great reliever for the longest time and has such a good track record of being good, but then he kind of stunk. So now I got to put him in a low leverage role. So I feel like it's been kind of a tricky season for him when it comes to, doing certain things because instead of just being a manager that's like, hey, I'm just relying on what they've done in the past and what's made them a great player, he's been able to kind of be like, okay, I got to base it on what they're doing right now because if I base it on the past or like what Buck Showalter did, if I just don't play the young guys and I play like a Daniel Vogelback instead of a Mark Vientos, that's not going to help me right now.
Yeah, you just hit me where it hurt.
Dude, that hurt me so much. I never saw a guy who had so much quote-unquote power look at every single he looked for a walk every single at bat. I saw pitches that were right over the plate, and he just walked back to the dugout whatever, I'll get him next time. It was so frustrating.
Well, so I come away from what you guys said that it's going to be tricky because you really have to. What you have to do if you're Carlos Mendoza is you have to identify who is going to be the guys that you can lean on in the bullpen. And right now, that's what they're going to have to figure out, right? They're going to have to figure out because the postseason's different. And I said this last year to somebody, Evan knows the story, but it was that I knew that the Phillies are going against the Diamondbacks, but the Phillies, this ultra talented team, was going to run into a problem because they were going to pitch Craig Kimbrell. And they felt like they had to pitch Craig Kimbrell. And I had already seen Kimbrell's situation in the postseason, not only in 18, but also against the Marlins a couple rounds before. And sure enough, game 3, boom, game 4, boom, you're done. You have to identify the right guys. Now, one of my favorite parts of are trying to figure out what teams are going to be good in the postseason, make postseason runs, is finding starting pitchers who are saying, let's go. Get on my back. All right. Do the Mets have to get on my back, guys? And you got to have at least two of them. You got to have them. Do they have those guys?
They have at least two, and they came out of nowhere. Sean Manaea is an ace of this staff. So people ask me all season long, oh, the Mets don't have an ace. They don't have a Kodai Senga's hurt. You traded away Scherzer. You traded away Verlander. Sean Manaea, it could be one of the greatest free agent signings by the Mets ever. The guy's ERA is down to what, like a 3.29. He's got 177 strikeouts and 171 innings. I know he didn't start off as great, but and then that whole Chris Sale situation where he did change some things at the end of last year, but then watching Chris Sale on the mound, he changed his delivery, and he's now going like 7 innings deep every single game. I mean, you talk about a bullpen that you're not sure who you're going to use. You're going to mix and match every day. You don't need a bullpen when you have Sean Manaea on the mound. So that's one. The other guy is Luis Severino. I understand he's been a little bit more inconsistent lately, but he's been your workhorse all year long. And that's coming off of a year where his biggest issue was tipping pitches. And that's what pisses me off about the Yankees. They had all year to figure that out. They didn't do it. They let Carlos Mendoza come be the manager of the Mets. He says, bring in Luis Severino. We'll fix him. And they did. It's beautiful. And listen, and then you got Quintana and Peterson. David Peterson came out of nowhere. I couldn't stand David Peterson. Couldn't stand Tyler McGill. I wanted both of those guys off of this roster, and they've turned into, I don't want to say aces, but they've turned into some hell of a pitchers for the second half of the season. But the two guys I'm relying on, it's Sean Manaea and Luis Severino.
All right. Evan, do you concur?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like every Met fan has to agree that those two guys, especially consistency wise, because it's like once they got going, those are the two guys that have really been, crazy good. Obviously, I saw a stat yesterday. I don't remember the numbers off it, but our entire rotation as of right now has all been really, really solid lately. Peterson, McGill, Quintana, and obviously Severino and Manaea. But those are definitely the two guys that would have to go in game one and game two. And then it's just a matter of trying to figure out who that game 3 guy is. I know they've been talking about Senga, but I'd imagine he'd be more of a bullpen guy, if anything. But yeah, I mean, those are the two guys that Mendoza probably has a ton of trust in at this point. And then the third guy just comes down to, I don't think any Met fan, as much as Tyler McGill's been good lately, I don't think any Met fan wants him in a playoff game. But I think if Quintana can keep the way he's going, the way he's been lately, because it was funny because Quintana's been like, he was like, oh, he's, a stable guy. Then mid-season, it was like, this guy needs to be DFA'd. He's like Carlos Carrasco all over again. And then now he's back to being a really, really good pitcher. So I think he'd probably make the most sense for the third game. But yeah, those top two guys definitely.
All right. So now this is what the whole exercise is about, convincing me. I want to dive in. But, okay, the last thing is this is the fan base question. And because Pete, like I was at Citizens Bank Park last year, and that crowd had a very real presence. They enacted something. They willed themselves on the result of the game. Like I truly believe that. Okay, for instance, Marlins came in the first round. It was over when they did the introductions. I mean, that crowd was on top of you. Conversely, I know the Rangers won, but still, that crowd is just about, let's see how loud we can get the decibel meter. I am so anxious to see what Citi Field is going to be like in this situation because it's been a while. You guys know it's been a while. So Pete, you first. Like, is this crowd? Is you have the heartbeat of what is going on there? Can this crowd make a difference when it comes to pushing the Mets to where you want to go?
I do believe they can. And Rob, this is the reason why. 2022, when did they celebrate making the playoffs? They didn't. It was all about the division. It was all about, we need to win the division. I don't care about anything else. And they lost the division. And then the Mets never celebrated, and the fans never celebrated. So we walked into that series with San Diego not celebrating, pins and needles, because we've been slumping. The Mets have been slumping so bad. They lost the division. We got to play the Padres, whatever. We should be able to win, I guess. I don't know. DeGrom's kind of looking like a shell of himself. Everything's falling apart. And this team is different. This team feels special. And I know that not every Met fan is on board yet, because it's not until they're in the playoffs can they really take a deep breath, because we all know the LOL Mets. We know the heartbreak. We know everything. Like, the season's over by June, the June swoon. This year, that's when that season picked up. And I think this Met fan base has bought into everything. The grimace, I think, is amazing. I know it's stupid, but it's amazing stupid. And that's us. We're just amazing. So this year, the fans are locked in. I know that they haven't sold the place out yet. I know it's a little smaller crowds than we want it to be. But when the playoffs hit and we're sitting there in Citi Field, we're going to take over. It's a guarantee.
I think that there's something to be said, and there's great points by you about the build-up. Obviously, the Mets have gained this momentum in August and September, and that's sort of what you want. You don't want this sad trombone of, yeah, we made it September. Okay, playoffs are here. Everyone get excited. I mean, and the Mets, let's be honest with guys. I mean, the Mets marketing have done a great job with this. You said it. It's amazing stupid. I love that, right? But it's true. They keep, whether it's the OMG thing, whether it's the grimace thing, whatever it is. Obviously before it was Timmy Trumpets, but they do a great job of leaning into it, and that's what it should be about. And on top of being a good team, because you know what, the players, that's what drives them. It's not a cliche. That's what drives the players. The players. Being around that Mets clubhouse, even that brief time I was a week or so ago, and just talking to Gibby and Gibby was a guy, to your point, Pete, Gibby's been around forever. And he's saying, I've never been a part of the clubhouse like this, because when you look forward to coming to the park every day, and a big part of that is the crowd, and a big part of that is Evan, producer Evan. Evan, are you going to just be sitting in that room with a white wall, just screaming at do you concur? I mean, do you?
No, yeah, I definitely think as much as people knock the gimmicks, and especially with the Yankees, because they don't really do any gimmicks at all. They don't even do the City Connect jerseys. But I think the gimmicks also worked this year, because we went into this year with everybody on every TV station and every report saying oh, this is a rebuilding year. Scherzer at the deadline, Andy Martino all winter. Oh, the Yankees are going all in, but the Mets aren't doing anything. And then I think when they really started winning and when they really started kicking it off, it was fun to have little things to connect it to. It was when Grimace, and then Jose Iglesias comes up and becomes a phenom, and then he does the OMG, and then we got Mets fans on Twitter making signs so freaking big they're going over an entire dugout. So I think all the gimmicks have actually worked in our favor. It's easy to look back on them if you go to crap after they happen, but when they're actually working in your favor, I definitely think it's a bonus.
But can I go ahead? Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're all good. What was it?
No, can I tell you though, is that there's every team has something, right? Every team has something. Look at the Phillies, the Dancing on My Own thing last year, or whatever you wanted, the long hair, the beards. You have even the Yankees. You said, well, they don't have the Yankees. When they got really good, when they got some personality in that clubhouse, and Jazz Chisholm. And I'm not comparing Jazz Chisholm to the Grimace or whatever. But the point is that you could tell right away he added personality to it. So yeah. So I don't know. Anyway, all right, Pete. You got one last thing. Bring it to me. Tell me. Should I be booking my $700 a night hotel rooms in New York City for the World Series?
There's no doubt you might be staying here for a while, because it might be a Subway Series. So that's honestly, you're talking about Evan, you talked about it earlier, I believe, where the AL is not good. The AL's not. It's disappointing, and there's no real contender again for the Yankees. So there's a huge possibility we have a Subway Series replay from 2000, And this time it's coming up Mets. I'm telling you why. Because everybody on this team feels it. There's no one that's dragging. They pick up after each other. Let me ask you a question, both of you. Evan, Rob, when was the last losing streak the Mets went on?
Ooh.
I don't remember. It's sometime in May. That's how long it's been, because they're resilient. After every major loss, you're like, oh, this is now it's going to drop. Now we're going to lose here. We lose to Philadelphia. We lose to Atlanta, whatever the case is. And they find a way the next day to come back and stop it. And that's the most important thing. It's always, what can you do to kill a losing streak? It's not keeping a winning streak, because sometimes that's easy. It's when do you stop the losing streak? Look at the White Sox. They can't stop losing. There's no one that can step up. Everybody on this Mets team can be a part to stop a bad losing streak. That's why I'm convinced they're not losing a 7-game series.
That is a great point. And I've seen some, go look it up. I mean, it's science that teams, I've seen teams, and you go look, it said when, they didn't, I remember that some teams I covered didn't have more than 3-game losing streaks. They didn't. And so, yeah, that's an excellent point. All right, guys. All right. I want you guys to you guys are like the straws that stir the drink when it comes to this cause. And Evan knows this. I have told the president of baseball operations of the Arizona Diamondbacks that they were going to win the World Series, but I'll tell you, he's not listening to this, so I'll tell you the Mets are going to win the World Series. So let's go.
Let's go.
Pete. Yeah. All right, Pete. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Rob, my pleasure, man. I appreciate you. Evan, you too.